Okay. So we've done Ais. Fine, we'll do... Oh, look, Leander's last. Perfect. That's perfect. That's actually perfect. Okay, we'll do Kuras next. Hot on Kuras's heels, I squeeze my way out of the bar. Of everyone I've met, he seems the most likely to help me, or the least likely to murder me on a whim. Early this morning, he said I could go to the clinic for help whenever I needed it. Time to see if that promise was actually worth anything. I breathe a sigh of relief once I'm free of the crowded bar. Kuras, hearing me, turns my way. Valkii, you seem upset. I take it the Amaryllis district is not to your liking. I pause to think about that. It's not so different from the streets where I grew up, though the clientele is much more colourful. That's not why I stepped out. You are not in need of treatment after that fall, are you? I scowl up at him and he holds out his hands in a mollifying gesture. I apologize, Valkii. Please continue. About time. Someone cuts right across me towards Kuras, stopping us both in the middle of the street. Even in the dim pink haze that seems to blanket everything, there's no mistaking the pressed white uniform and stiffly starched hat. Another Cenobian cleric. I hastily step back, making myself as inconspicuous as possible. Can I help you? Nervous onlookers hastily part around Kuras and the cleric. The two form an island of white in a sea of teeming colour. Enough. You know why I'm here. And I hope you find this edifying. Kuras reaches into his coat and produces 3 tiny glass vials, bound together with a thick leather cord. A silvery powder shimmers inside. He gently flicks the glass, watching the contents swirl, and extends the vials to the cleric. This is it? They look extremely unimpressed. Appearances can be deceiving. He throws me a glance and a swift smile, but I'm too surprised to respond. Kuras was the first to warn me about the Cenobium. Nobody I met had anything good to say about them. And yet here he is, openly dealing with them in the Amaryllis district? I glance between Kuras and the cleric, who seems to notice me for the very first time. Good night. They bow to Kuras, offer me an extremely perfunctory nod, and disappear into the seething crowd. Valkii? Is something amiss? I really like Ais, man. I like Leander. I like Ais. Kuras could be interesting. Mhin and Vere I don't really have too much interest in, but obviously I'm still going to play their routes because you never know. You literally never know. Especially with a premise such as this where, you know, things may not be as they seem. Right, isn't that dangerous? A conversation is hardly dangerous. You know what I mean. You were the one who warned me about the Cenobium. Shh, be calm. He holds one finger to his lips, which suddenly curl in a cat-like smile. For now, please join me on a short stroll. Kuras's golden eyes twinkle in the low light. He beckons me away from the main thoroughfare, down a side street filled with vendors hawking late-night snacks. What? Wait. Now powerfully curious in spite of myself, I hurry after Kuras. Each of his long, graceful strides is easily 2 of mine. I catch a glimpse of his gleaming white coat disappearing around the corner of the street. The moment I catch up, the delicious scents of freshly baked goods flood my nose. My stomach gives a loud rumble. 1 honey pistachio cookie, please. Coming right up. Without breaking his swift pace, Kuras plucks... See, I said Kuras, but Kuras, I don't know which one it is. Plucks the sticky confection out of the merchant's hand and offers it to me. The heavenly smell makes my stomach rumble once more. I take a bite without hesitation. Kuras watches me with an indulgent smile, and I notice he hasn't gotten anything for himself. You're not hungry? You need not concern yourself with me, He stops mid-sentence, his eyes darting back the way we came. The hairs stick up on the back of my neck. I turn just enough to peek over my shoulder, hoping I don't look too suspicious. Sure enough, it's the same cleric who waylaid us in the street, now wearing a thunderously angry expression. Uh-oh. Well, disappointment can be a learning experience. Glimmers of realization dawn over me as I stare up at him. What exactly was in those vials? Perhaps a rare and potent alchemical catalyst. Or some stale fish skin. The two do resemble one another, and it can be hard to tell them apart. Is he serious? I chance another glance at the cleric who's now trying to elbow their way between the food stalls. A few people make way, but most don't even notice their efforts. The street is far too crowded with hungry patrons. Shall we? Without even waiting for a response from me, he glides swiftly into the crowd once more. We know what we're not going to save. Doesn't seem that important. You're messing with the Cenobium cleric. Such impolite behavior. I'm astounded you would even suggest it. Kuras! I must still look incredulous because his smile softens a little. He lifts his hand as if to pat my shoulder, then stops himself. As I said, you have nothing to fear. He ducks into what looks like an abandoned doorway, but opens into a small covered market. The stalls here are full of more spices than I knew existed. Even taking a short breath makes me sneeze. Kuras slows his pace, occasionally pausing to examine the insistent hawker's wares. Wait. He looks up from the display of livid red leaves, each as long as my forearm. You said I have nothing to fear, but everyone in Iridia seems wary of the Cenobium. People fear the obvious trappings of power, wealth, force, or a hideously ostentatious tower. For my part, I find such trappings merely disappointing. The Cenobium once had great potential. They squandered it decades ago in the pursuit of trinkets, pleasure, and petty tyranny. Their narrow, prosaic interests have rendered them blind to all else that moves. I think that's the most I've ever heard Kuras say on any topic. You sound like you know them well. Kuras lets out a long, low sigh. You miss little, Valkii. Familiarity breeds contempt, and I am more familiar with the Cenobium's crude methods than I would like. Now I'm getting somewhere. Something beyond vague warnings or swift deflections. I decide to press the point while I have the chance. Familiar how? Kuras stops right in front of the display of pickled fruits, and I nearly run into his back. He steps aside at the last moment. His arm rests gently but firmly on my waist. I tense, but he's careful to avoid my bandaged hands. Our pursuer refuses to take no for an answer. Them again? I thought we'd lost them in the crowd. I crane my neck to look for the cleric, but Kuras shakes his head. This way. The next street over seems to be home to the high-end brothels. It's full of steep stairways and shadowy passages, perfect for discreet trysts or losing a persistent tale. A pink curtain and painted facades sprawl around me like a giant, colourful warren. It only takes a few more twists and turns down blind alleys and narrow walkways before I'm completely turned around. Kuras, however, seems to be following some map in his own mind. He takes each turn with swift confidence, guiding me with the occasional nudge. The gaps between teetering buildings can hardly be called alleys, so narrow we have to pass through single file. Just a little further. The effortless grace with which he moves is almost infuriating. It takes every ounce of concentration I have just to avoid tripping over loose tiles, discarded clothes, and unidentifiable rubbish. Meanwhile, his long legs almost seem to float over every obstacle. His clothes are still completely pristine, despite the soot-stained walls on either side. How the hell does he do it? I'm still trying to puzzle it out when I realize how warm it is, with me practically tripping on his heels. The tiny gap between us seems to radiate heat like beating midday sun on the longest day of summer. Duh. I definitely don't want to get lost here. I stay as close to Kuras as I can without actually touching him. I promise I will not lose you. Was I that obvious? Our eyes meet, and despite my best efforts, I find it hard to hold his gaze. I've never seen eyes like his, despite our dark and dingy surrounding. It's like Kuras radiates his own light whenever he looks at me. Thank you for indulging me, Valkii. I believe we have lost our tale. It's much quieter on the edges of the Amaryllis district, and the deals in the shadows look shadier. Did you enjoy your impromptu tour? Relief escapes me in a tired laugh. After the day I've had, playing keep away from a Cenobian cleric seems almost normal. I wasn't in mortal peril, so it's a nice change of pace. He laughs too, a soft and pleasant chuckle completely at odds with his usual cool demeanour. Are you sure we've lost that cleric? If there is one thing you can count on, it is the elitism of the Cenobium's finest. They will not deign to follow us this far. He sounds confident enough. I was starting to wonder if we'd have to make a full circuit of the city to ditch them. A beam of moonlight cuts through the clouds, casting his face into sharp relief. However, I should escort you back to your lodgings. It would be unwise to let you go alone. What about you? Are you staying at the Wetwick? Of course not. Then you're going back to your clinic alone. You just said it was a bad idea. He pauses, stares at me, then his expression relaxes into a gentle smile. Fear not, Valkii. Only the most desperate or foolish would dare lay a hand on me. It sounds insane after 2 near-death soulless encounters, but part of me believes him. The few people who are still out huddle beneath street lamps and in doorways, desperate to be as close to safety as possible. Kuras, on the other hand, looks more relaxed than I've ever seen him. He's strolling down the middle of the street, bold, as if it were broad daylight. Even walking alongside him makes me feel more secure, warmer both inside and out. I hang on to that faint spark of hope and screw up my courage. Did you mean it this morning, when you said I could come back to you for help? Every word. All his earlier mirth vanishes, replaced by calm focus. I don't know what to say to that. I almost expected his offer to be a courtesy, an easy way to get me out the door. The fact that he meant it. Why do you ask? I believe I have already made my intention to help you quite clear. His eyes flick briefly to my arm, the one that he miraculously reattached when he found me. I can almost imagine him counting the neat stitches. I just wanted to make certain. I'm still figuring out who's trustworthy and who's trouble. I see. Iridia does tend to attract extreme individuals, including you? Valkii, I decline to incriminate myself in your eyes. I can recognize a smooth deflection when I hear one, though if he won't talk more about himself, maybe he'll tell me about someone else. I decide to ask about, so now we get the chance to ask about everyone else. Why do you send me to Leander for help? Few know Iridia better than Leander. The company he keeps can be questionable, but I had confidence in him. Yeah, his bloodhounds seemed rough around the edges. Leander has always preferred the company of those like him. Survivors of Lowtown's harsh realities. You must have noticed how they flocked to him. I nod. He seemed to know every single person in the Wetwick. And that's a good thing? Leander's closest peers trust him with their lives. I would say that counts for something. Vere. How do you know Vere? Kuras visibly stiffens, and I remember the venom in Vere's voice when he grabbed me. That fucking doctor. It looks like the feeling is very much mutual. Regrettably, Vere is one of my worst patients. How did you cross his path? He stole my room key. You are fortunate that he did nothing else. He is far deadlier than he seems. There is a reason he is not at liberty, a reason for the collar and chain. He seemed pretty dodgy to me already. I hesitate, waiting for Kuras to elaborate, but he seems to find even the thought of Vere distasteful. Have you ever been out to see Ais at the sea spring? Once. Only once? Seems like a spring with miraculous powers would interest a doctor. A long silence follows, so long that I'm not sure Kuras heard me. I'm about to repeat myself when he finally speaks in a near whisper. Ais is the rare newcomer who has proven himself immediately worthy of respect. The sea spring is another matter. Hidden depths often contain unwelcome secrets. You could say that about anything around here. A fair point. Nonetheless, I have seen many purported wonders, and the sea spring is unlike any other. Only time will tell what that means. Mhin. You and Mhin sound like you know each other well. Kuras heaves a long, suffering sigh. I know them better than most, and less well than I would like. Like you, Mhin is a recent arrival. Their time here has been particularly difficult, as much as I would like to help. He trails off, but I know exactly what he's talking about. Mhin didn't seem like the sort of person who would accept help easily. But they always pick fights that are twice their size. I have implored them not to. They rarely listen. With my curiosity sated for now, I fall silent. I wish Kuras had given me just a little more to go on, but he seems almost as tight-lipped as the others as he is about himself. By the time we're back at the Wetwick, the Amaryllis district seems even noisier and more raucous than before. Drunken patrons overflow into the streets, which reek of split wine. How am I supposed to sleep with all this racket? I suggest the stiffest drink at the bar, alternatively a ball of wax. Very funny. Even with how tired I am, I'm not sure I'll get a wink of sleep. I'm about to say goodnight to Kuras when someone staggers out of the Wetwick and right into me. I stumble back, heels teetering on the edge of the filthy gutter. Valkii? The next thing I know, a pair of warm arms catch me around the waist. I find myself staring up at Kuras, pressed against his chest. His grasp loosens, but he doesn't quite let me go. Something shifts in his gaze. His eyes fix on my face, and I feel myself growing hot all over at his intense scrutiny. What does he see in me? What's he looking for? Kuras? My apologies. Even after he moves away, the warmth of his touch lingers through my clothes. I quickly tug my cloak straight, trying to recollect my scattered thoughts. Good night. Thanks for everything today. You are most welcome. He turns and slips into the crowd, though I can pick out his pristine white coat with ease. A chilly gust howls down the street. When did it get so cold out? From all appearances, Kuras is a principal doctor of extraordinary skill, but you know little about the man beneath the professional mask, and Kuras keeps even his friends at a cool distance. If you uncover his deepest secrets, will you like what you find? I wanna know. I wanna know. Yeah. Alright, next is Mhin. Probably my least favorite one that we're gonna go through. But we'll see, he could surprise me. I can't let Mhin slip away so easily. They might be the most standoffish person I've met so far, but they're the only one who seems even close to neutral on the Cenobium. My gut tells me they know more about that tower than they're letting on. By the time I make it out of the bar, they're already halfway down the street. Drawing my cloak close to ward off the chill, I hurry after them, but at this hour, the Amaryllis district is full of carousing people. While Mhin slips through the crowd with surprising agility, I struggle to keep pace. The edge of their cloak flutters as they round the corner. Determined to at least try and catch up, I take the same turn into a dim side street. But Mhin is nowhere to be seen. Instinctively, I look for the telltale signs of a person's passage, fluttering fabric or a just-closed door, but I don't see anything out of the ordinary. No hiding spots either. I start to turn because that can only mean one thing. Didn't you learn your lesson earlier? That Mhin doubled back. I'm almost impressed. There's not many people who could sneak up on me like that. They fold their arms, pointedly staring me down. I thought nearly getting eaten would teach you that being out alone at night is dangerous. It's a good thing I'm not alone then, isn't it? Mhin looks at me in blank confusion for a moment before realization dawns. Are you always so persistent? I don't really know how to read them. They shift between aggressive and hesitant without warning, and I have no idea how to tell which way they'll swing. But I can't help feeling a thrill when pink sweeps across their cheeks. I kinda have to be. It's how I stay alive. Mhin recovers their composure quickly, their mouths shifting into a frown. They glance away, eyes sweeping across the street. The gaze seems to linger on a particular building, another tavern by the sign outside, before they look back at me. You've been lucky so far, but it won't last. Nobody in this city is trustworthy. Not even you? Especially not me. I've met clams that opened up more willingly than Mhin, but even if they don't talk about themselves much, they must have opinions about, oh, this is a really short route. A really short ending. Route. You and Kuras seem to get along, though. The tense lines of Min's features soften. He's an exception. Few people are willing to help others. Fewer when there's any risk involved. And of them, Kuras is unique. I have a feeling that Mhin doesn't smile often, but the curve of their lips, however slight, is unmistakable. They catch themselves, their expression closing off with a near-audible snap. He's not the worst, a decent doctor, even if he asks too many questions. But nothing is really free here. You think he's running some kind of racket? What? No! The rebuttal is too fast to be anything but genuine. They huff, apparently annoyed to be caught being sincere. I just think there's something more to him, though I suppose that's true of most people. Vere. How did you meet Vere? Min's face scrunches like they'd be just bitten into a rotten lemon. That perverse fleabag jumped me during fogfall, so I stabbed him and left him in the gutter where he belongs. My heart thuds hard in my chest, their voice is icy with disgust. The night air feels warm by comparison. It's only a shame it didn't stick. I suppose I'll just have to keep trying. Mhin speaks casually of murder, and I vividly remember the sight of blood smeared on their hands. But somehow I'm not afraid. I don't think they mean me harm. I take it your opinion hasn't changed? He fucks with people for kicks. Every sentence out of his mouth is either crass innuendo or a conceited put-down, and whatever he's done is bad enough that the Cenobium has him on a leash. There are monsters living on every other street. He's the only one who needs a muzzle before he's taken out for a walk. Belatedly, I close my mouth. Leander seems fond of you. He's an idiot, an obnoxious blowhard who can't shut up to save his life. Their words are harsh, taken at face value, but it's at complete odds with the flush creeping across their cheekbones. Is that all? They huff. It seems to physically pain them to speak again. He does acceptable work, he pays on time, which is more than I can say for most, and his bloodhounds look after Lowtown. If he was capable of being quiet for more than 10 seconds at a time, he'd be almost tolerable. Their tone grows almost fond, but then their brows dart together as they glare at me. But I'm not one of his bloodhounds. If he told you otherwise, he was talking out of his ass, as usual. He has work to offer, and sometimes I take it, that's all. Somehow, I doubt that, but Mhin seems disinclined to say more. You don't seem to like Ais. I don't like anyone, but especially not that bloodthirsty gangster. The words tumble from their mouth before I can even finish my sentence. Did he do something to you? Beyond existing? No, but I'm not waiting around to get hurt first. That sea spring he runs with all those smiley, red-eyed people, I suppose his one saving grace is that he hasn't forced anyone to drink from it, yet. Monsters like him don't know or care about what they have. It makes me sick. Their voices echo down the empty street, startling me. I blink, staring at them. You really don't like monsters, do you? Mhin fixes me with a flat gaze, their pale eyes like chips of ice. Every monster forced their way out of the shroud and into this world for some reason. I may not know Ai's reason, but to the vast majority of monsters, humans are food, playthings, or beneath notice. That may simply be their nature, but I don't have to like it. And I'm not going to risk my life in hopes that one of them is different. A lot of humans fear or hate monsters, but there's something different about how Mhin talks about them. It sounds personal. If you're going to keep asking questions, ask about something else. Doors bang open at the end of the street. Light and laughter pour out of the bar, followed by a group of giggling people in white uniforms. Cenobium students having a night out on the town. Mhin hesitates only for a moment before they start down the street in the same direction as the students. Is he in the Cenobium? Is he a student? When I follow close on their heels, they grimace, speaking through gritted teeth. Why are you still following me? When I asked them about Vere, I noticed something odd besides their vehement dislike of him. While Mhin didn't exactly sound enthusiastic about the Cenobium, they were the first to speak of it without anything besides open animosity. Ahead of us, the students pile into another bar. Mhin ducks into the alley next to it. If nobody in this city is trustworthy, what about the Cenobium? The line of their narrow shoulders abruptly tenses. They lift their chin, giving me a wary look. Kuras must have warned you about the nature of the city's currency. Right, information and secrets. I fidget, uncertain. I don't trust Min's unpredictable moods or all the things they clearly aren't saying. Their eyes dip towards my hands, passing over the bandages like a razor, the pressure light but full of keen-edged possibility. I shiver, hastily shoving my hands into my pockets. They frown, but their gaze drifts away from me, to the window of the bar next to us. It's opaque, either frosted glass or caked in dust, but some of the warm light diffuses out into the alley. The Cenobium is a place of learning. If someone has questions that can't be answered anywhere else, the Cenobium might have the solution. Or at least, that's how it was once upon a time. These days, its doors are closed to outsiders. That's about what I expected after how I was practically shooed off earlier. Just as I start to relax, they speak again. Whatever you're looking for there, the cost may be higher than you're willing to pay. The sheer hypocrisy of their words ticks me off. What gives you the right to talk when you're doing the same exact thing as me? What questions are you asking that only the Cenobium can answer? That's personal. So there is something Min's looking for at the Cenobium. I suppose that makes two of us. If they're following groups of Cenobium students around, they must not be having much luck either. Everyone else seems to fear or hate the Cenobium, but you don't. They flinch, spurred onward by curiosity and my lingering annoyance. I press forward. You must know something about them, something you haven't told Leander or Kuras. But they're not letting you in, which means you're one of the outsiders. In the space between one breath and the next, Mhin closes the distance between us. Slender fingers grip the front of my shirt and they slam me against the wall with shocking strength. The force of the movement knocks their hood back, messy hair fluttering around their face. I'm standing on tiptoe. Min's lifted me nearly clear off the ground with a single hand. The realization sends an electric tingle down my spine, but before I can begin to wonder what that's about, Mhin snarls in my face. You don't know what you're fucking talking about. The angry twist of their mouth draws my eyes down to the beauty spot at the corner of their lips. I can't seem to stop staring at it. It's incongruously delicate compared to the fire in their gaze, the steel-boned strength in their grip, but then so is the rest of them. Neither do you. We're practically strangers, so why are you acting like you know anything about me? Your line of questioning isn't exactly subtle, and it's not hard to guess that this has something to do with your hands. You think you can use me to get into the cenobium? Don't be naive. I don't get angry easily. I can't afford to when a moment of carelessness could be fatal, but when they mention my hands, my temper flares hot. Who says I'm the one who needs you? Realization strikes me like a thunderclap. You're not getting anywhere by yourself either, are you? But you can't make yourself ask for help. You're stuck, and it's your own fault. I brace myself, expecting Mhin to snap at me again. Instead, their gaze drops, eyes falling away from my face. Their brows furrow in frustration, but the twist of their mouth is miserable. Their voice trembles almost imperceptibly when they speak. I know. This city only cares about what you can give or what it can take from you. Information, power, connections. If you're an outsider here, nobody will help you. Nobody will even try. You don't belong anywhere. My heart thuds in my chest for an entirely different reason now. They seem suddenly very small. Alone, like me. Mhin jerks backwards, releasing me so abruptly that I nearly stumble. Maybe they realized how close we were. Maybe they said too much. You know, I don't really need to save because you can just, go backwards, but... Determined not to let this go, I press forward. Mhin takes another step back, but this time they're the one with their back against the wall. Look, we both want something from the cenobium, right? But neither of us are going to get anywhere on our own. We could help each other. It's worth a shot, don't you think? Mhin sighs. They sound annoyed, but any real hostility seems to have gone out of them. You've made it this far already, I'll grant you that. But if you're looking for help, you should look elsewhere. If you stay too close to me, you'll get hurt. Before I can think of what to say, the tavern doors bang open again. The Snowbeam students spill back out, considerably drunker. Their ranks seem to have swelled with other barflies. The group floods back into town towards that great tower rising moonward. So I guess he's not a part of the Snowbeam. He was just trying to break in. As I'm distracted by the commotion, Mhin slips away from me, drawing their hood up. I catch their eyes for just a moment, then they're gone, vanishing into the crowd. Have a look, the cursed outsider. I thought we were the cursed outsider. Despite their cold nature and familiarity with violence, Mhin is just as desperate as you to get into the Cenobium. You may be able to help each other, but they're keeping as many secrets as you. They claim they're dangerous, but could they be your only chance of getting into the Cenobium? It's not fair that this game has such a long way to go. Vere next. Of all the people I've met, only one left me with more questions than answers. Vere knows more than he's letting on, I'm certain of it. And if he's feeling as playful as he was earlier, I might be able to get information out of him. Still lingering doubts loom heavy over my decision. Can I really trust someone who lies so readily? Returning to the bar is slow work with the heavy crowd vying for drinks. When I find Vere, he's leaning against the counter with his elbows propped on the edge and a wine glass raised to his lips. Not for the first time I catch myself staring and judging by the looks I see thrown his way. I'm not the only one. Yet there's a clear ring around Vere no one else seems bold enough to cross. One ear perks at the sound of my approach, but Vere doesn't so much as look my way even when I slide onto the seat beside him. I didn't think you planned on sticking around. A free drink's a free drink, even if it tastes like rat piss. Didn't you say you wouldn't be caught dead slumming in this shithole? Vere takes a delicate sip from his glass, but his tail thrashes below the bar. You've caught me red-handed. He peers at me over the rim of his glass. In the low light, his eyes glitter jewel-bright with amusement. However will you punish me? I figured my company's punishment enough for you. Vere's lips twitch, and he smiles despite himself. So, you survived the night. Are you here for praise, or will a head pat do? I feel a muscle in my jaw flex at the cruel twist to his smile. His arrogance has made a full recovery, meaning only one thing. Vere has sobered up. So much for my plan. About that. Turns out you were right. I did run into trouble. Now, I can't decide if you're an oracle or an actual threat, or just completely full of shit. Vere scoffs. Most women would buy me a drink before insulting me. After the way you jerked me around, if anyone's owed a drink, it's me. Vere falls so uncharacteristically quiet that for a moment I fear I've actually crossed the line. Then he props his chin on his wrist. I don't think you understand how things work here. Information is a luxury. One you flung carelessly aside. I'm not following. If you valued my words, you'd have taken them seriously. I gave you free advice, warned you of the danger you were in, and you still went prancing off to the sea spring. Small wonder the soulless didn't tear you to ribbons. My first impulse is to argue, but what he said doesn't sit well with me. How does he know what happened to me? I mean, both of these are like small wonder the soulless didn't tear you to ribbons. Okay, how do you know I left? I'm certain I wasn't followed when I left. I have a very sensitive nose, remember? Right, how could I forget? Do you normally greet people by shoving your nose into their laps like an overeager Labrador? For a heartbeat, Vere's eyes grow wide and flat. Then he laughs under his breath. Only the ones I like. Vere trades his empty wineglass for a long-abandoned tumbler sweating beside him. Soft lumps of ice bob in the watery dregs of whiskey. But the truth is, I despise most people. His eyes flicker over my shoulder and thin as Leander's boisterous laughter erupts from the other side of the bar. What about me, now that we've started off on the right foot? He turns, angling so he can look me over. His gaze is agonizingly slow as it glides over me. Finally, his lips quirk. I haven't made up my mind about you yet. It's a start, or so I think, until his eyes slide away and he turns back towards the bar. It's not Vere's attitude that bothers me. No, I expected that of him. It's the fact that I've got no idea how I'm supposed to hold a conversation, much less get answers when he's being so testy, and his foul mood is infectious. Did I do something to piss you off? He lets out a short breath. No. Another lie. I'm close enough to catch the subtle bristling of his tail. I'm just disappointed. People like us can't help but attract danger, yet you seek it out, and for what? Cheap thrills? I wasn't trying to get eaten by soulless. There's something I'm looking for. And you think Mhin can help you? Leander, are you really willing to risk your life with those dipshits? What life? You've got no idea what I've gone through, or... Forget it. I start to rise, but he touches my shoulder. It's little more than a brush, but enough to give me pause. His eyes search mine, softer somehow than before. They couldn't even begin to understand you, but I could. I could help you, if only you'd listen. How do I know I can trust you? You don't, but I'm slightly less inclined to waste your time with empty flattery or insults than those two. Is what you desire really worth risking your life for? If you knew the kind of life I've lived, you wouldn't be asking. Vere considers the condensation sweating from his glass for a long moment before speaking again. Will you trust me? For now. Good enough for me. Vere raises the tumbler to me, then snaps back the dregs. Once he's finished, he wipes his mouth on the back of his hand. Let's talk. Outside. If I have to smell Leander's skunky aftershave for much longer, I'll hurl. With that, he slips away from the bar, leaving me to follow the path of his long trailing tail through the crowd. It's so cold outside, the breeze cuts clean through my bandages, freezing my fingers, but if the chill bothers Vere, he doesn't show it. He lopes purposefully down the street into an alley. This far from the wick, the bar's racket is little more than an indistinct hum. This street's as dead as the Amaryllis district was crowded. Did Vere want privacy or no witnesses? You had questions. Ask. Vere's breath mists in the dark. In the cold moonlight, his shadow stretches unnaturally long over the cobblestone street. Quickly, I've got a show to attend. Heavenly Lutist, as I'm sure I've mentioned. He looks down his nose at me, effortlessly imperious, with one hand set on his hip. And for a breath, I'm reminded of the stark want that gleamed in his eyes when he touched me. If he weren't so pretty, I'd walk away. But I need answers, and I can't think of a better way than starting with the people I met earlier. If Vere doesn't prove trustworthy, maybe one of them will. First, I ask about... I'd like to know more about Ais. You two seem close. He made an impression, Not surprising. He's strong, ruthless, easy on the eyes. Gives it almost as well as he takes it, even if he's awfully greedy. Big. Everywhere, really. Bit simple, but you know what they say about still waters. I don't, but I'm too distracted by the change that's come over Vere to ask. A coy smile plays at his lips as he winds a finger around the chain dangling from his collar. I thought you didn't like most people. Ais isn't most people. He's better. Our eyes meet and Vere's tender expression curdles. He makes a tiny sound of distaste in the back of his throat. He's more trouble than he's worth. Dangerous, too. Stay far away from him and those red-eyed freaks if you value your safety or your sanity. Is that why you scolded me for going to the Sea Spring? I really don't think Ais is as bad as you're saying. You don't know him. Not like I do. The corner of his lip twitches. Okay. I've got to admit, I was surprised to see that you and Mhin know each other. Are you friends? Oh yes, we laugh and go shopping and have sleepovers where we braid each other's hair and kiss with a little tongue. I'm beginning to wonder if Vere's ever had friends. Let me guess, you don't like them. Can't stand them. The first time we met, they stabbed me. Slid cold, hard steel between my ribs, nearly nicked my heart. It was exquisite. The knife, I mean, some sort of antique. Mhin's done nothing but disappoint me ever since. So you're not close. Can you imagine me being friends with that crabby little killjoy? Impossible, not unless they learn to lighten up. And I'm afraid not even a surgeon as practiced as Kuras could remove the stick wedged firmly up Mhin's pert ass. What do you think about Leander? I don't. An unusually curt answer for Vere. I don't buy it. So you're not very fond of him? I wouldn't spit on Leander if he were on fire. Vere shudders. Oh no, he'd enjoy that far too much. To call Leander trash would be an insult to manure. He's a pathetic, slimy little man-child in big shiny shoes. I've seen mutts rutting in gutters with more dignity. I have to remember to close my mouth. Before I can ask my next question, Vere gives a frustrated growl. Don't you dare ask me about another soul. I haven't got all night for idle gossip. When I wasn't finished asking... You get 2 more questions. Make them count. So much for being helpful, but I suppose that's just how information works in this exhausting city. No more time for idle chatter. I'll get straight to the point. Leander told me that the Cenobium imprisons people. Did he mean you? Leander's a moaning fool with a throbbing victim complex. He loves to see himself as a savior, but the only difference between his cronies and the Cenobian stooges are the uniforms. I'm at a loss for words. I don't know what surprises me more, the bluntness with which Vere spoke, or the venom lacing his ordinarily silken voice. You're asking who, when you should be asking why, says the asshole, counting my questions. The look he throws me is infuriatingly self-satisfied. Fine, why were you imprisoned? For the same reason they'll disappear you, given half the chance. I'm something special. Vere bows his head, gathering his hair in his hands and lifting it from his shoulders to bear the plain leather collar adorning his neck. See this collar? He cranes his neck, inviting me to lean closer. Looks unremarkable, doesn't it? I had assumed that Vere's collar was a personal touch. On closer glance, the thick supple leather is molded to fit his neck snugly. But the large silver buckle seems easy enough to pry open. I reach forward to touch the buckle, but... Vere's hand lashes out. Long, slender fingers wrap around my wrist, exerting just enough pressure to hint at how easily he could snap my bones. Don't you know better than to touch without asking? He tuts like a scolding teacher, but an impish smile grazes his lips. You didn't ask first, so why should I? Our eyes meet and he grins. Because I said so. That's not very fair. Fuck fairness. Life's not fair. His voice lowers to a pleased rumble. Patience, Valkii. I'll tell you when and how you can touch me. Behave or I'll make you bleed. Not my type. He says it with a smile so sweet it hurts. Is that a threat or a promise? Vere doesn't answer me, but he lets go of my arm. I smooth down my bandages more to get a grip than anything else. I can't lose my composure again. By now, I'd fully expect Vere to begin walking away, but the fact that he's still here suggests that he either forgot about his warning, or he was never counting my questions to begin with. Are you saying that's what'll happen if the Cenobian finds out I'm different? I'll be collared? Doubtful. They keep me around because I'm best at what I do. And what exactly do you do so well? Killing. He says it carelessly, without hesitation. As long as I wear this collar, I'm made to hunt the Cenobium's dizzying array of enemies, monsters, soulless, noisy dissidents who grow overbold. I'm bound by their will until the day I die. That's awful. Vere mumbles in agreement. It is, isn't it? And that's all you're getting from me. I really must leave now. I'll be late. That's it. Why'd you bring me here if you weren't going to explain anything? He has the nerve to laugh. Isn't that obvious? I wanted to lure you out here all alone so I could eat you. Just like a kitsune. You're lying again. And you're asking far too many questions for someone hiding so much. He sneers, and reflexively I shove my hands deep into my cloak. What makes you think I'm hiding anything? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's the tough act or the way you tense up at the slightest provocation. More likely it's the bandages, not exactly subtle, I'll be going, unless you're willing to share some morsels with me. There's a biting edge to his playful tone. I can't tell you anything. Wrong. You can start with what you are. I take a step backward, but... My back hits a wall as Vere follows me into a lockstep. I turn, only to find his left hand resting on the wall beside my head, caging me in. Vere reaches for me. His fingers curl around my chin and lift, forcing me to meet his lidded gaze. Would you believe me if I said that the eyes are the windows to the soul? My eyelid twitches. Cliché, I know, but let me tell you a little secret. Vere leans in until his lashes tickle my cheek and the warm, faintly spiced scent of his hair drowns out the stench of greasy cooking fires and chimney smoke. There's nothing you can hide from me. His voice is so low, so supple, I could slip into it. The betrayal, the loss of hope, the sheer desperation that drives you still to search and search to no end. I could give you something new to live for. I swallow thickly. How could he possibly know? No, this must be some kind of trick. But for once, Vere isn't smiling. All that suffering has made your soul so irresistible. His piercing eyes pin me to the spot. The look on his face makes my blood run cold. I've seen it before. Traveling through the wastes, the lanterns would occasionally reveal carcasses picked clean by starving scavengers whose eyes shone in the dark with the same ravenous hunger. Vere takes a shuddering breath. You're trembling. What if you and I went somewhere quieter, alone? Part of me wants nothing more than to let him take me, to surrender completely to him. It would be so easy. But I'm not about to give up now. You're late. The lootist. Vere blinks. His voice comes out soft and breathy. Shame. He eases back, and for what feels like the first time since he cornered me, I breathe, but my relief is short-lived. Nimble fingers trail down my jaw before closing around my throat. The touch is feather light and teasing, but my pulse still leaps. One last thing, Valkii. Spoken so softly that the pounding of my heart nearly drowns out his words. Call me a dog again, and I'll break you. Understood? His lips curve, but there's no humor in his voice. Yes. Good. As soon as Vere releases me, I sink against the alley wall to catch my breath. He looks down on me, his expression distinctly smug. Let's get one thing straight. I ate a monster 3 times your size for breakfast. 2, actually. The first tasted dreadful, like a fisherman's old ashtray, but that's beside the point. You and I may be alike, but don't ever forget what I am or what I do best. He flashes me a dazzling smile. Valkii? Anyone seen Valkii? Leander's voice echoes from the direction of the wick. I whip around. I nearly call back before remembering Vere's apparent dislike for Leander. I glance back at Vere. Only he's gone, vanished into the dark. I'm left in the deserted alley, trembling with a delirious mixture of exhaustion and excitement. Fuck. I let out a long, shaky exhale that condenses in the freezing air. Only once my racing heartbeat slows down do I make my way back towards the wick, guided by the distant sound of Leander's voice. Least favourite, so far. But again, maybe in the full route he can surprise me. That would be nice. Vere serves as a warning of the dangers posed by the cenobium. As cunning as he is curious, Vere finds you fascinating, insists that he can help. But trusting him means entrusting your life to a collared beast with a lethal reputation. Can Vere protect you, or is honeyed words a trap waiting to snap shut? Alright, last one. For the second time today, I find myself squeezing through the crowd to reach Leander. No, Leander. No. The one I was most looking forward to, they don't have in the demo. What's that about? And that's so confusing. Okay, well, anyway. Alright, this is the TOUCHSTARVED demo. You will not see this for another 2 years. Because... I mean, unless they do something else, but... unlikely. But yeah. It's a shame because I actually really enjoy this. But yeah, since I'm gonna upload this in the time frame of the Kickstarter still being alive, you know, if you, I will link it down below, and you know, if you like it, I would definitely suggest backing it. They've done more stretch goals, even though it's, again, it has well reached past the point that it needed to be fulfilled. So yeah, I would, if you want to help out, if you want to, you know, I did it. I mean, I'm getting the game, everything. So yeah, if you want to help out, just go ahead. Go ahead and contribute to the Kickstarter. And yeah, I will probably not play the next demo I have lined up right away because it's late and I didn't think the demo was going to last this long. But yeah, yeah, I'll see you next time.